Welcome to Nutrition Basics. My name is Samantha Haswell, and I'm the Integrative Health Dietitian at Massey Cancer Center. Today, we'll be discussing food safety during cancer treatment. Cancer and its treatments may weaken your immune system by affecting the white blood cells that protect your body against disease, bacteria, and viruses. This makes it difficult for your body to fight off diseases and infections. It's important to note that avoiding or eating certain kinds of foods will not raise your white blood cell count, but making sure to eat enough calories and protein to maintain your weight can be helpful. Let's start with tips for food handling. One of the best ways you can take food safety seriously is washing your hands well before, during, and after food preparation, especially when you're handling things like raw meat in your cooking. It's also very important to wash your hands before and after eating. When washing your hands, make sure you're washing with warm soapy water for at least 20 seconds. If you're looking for a way to make it easy, try singing the happy birthday song to make sure you're spending enough time washing your hands. It's extra important that when you're going through cancer or its treatments, you keep your hot foods hot and your cold foods cold. Keep your refrigerated cold items at or below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, which also means making sure that your fridge is at or below 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And keep your hot foods hot at or above 140 degrees Fahrenheit until you are ready to eat it. When it comes to thawing meat, fish, or poultry, we recommend that you do so in the microwave or in a dish in the refrigerator. Do not thaw foods at room temperature. When you thaw foods at room temperature, you're in what we call the danger zone, the zone in which bacteria like to thrive. So you want to make sure that you're keeping it at that 40 degrees and thawing it in the fridge. Do not refreeze defrosted items. Once items have defrosted, they've been sitting at an unsafe temperature for too long. You want to make sure that you're keeping frozen foods frozen if you're not ready to use them. When it comes to grocery shopping, you want to make sure that you put your refrigerated items into your fridge within 1 hour or less of buying to make sure you're keeping yourself food safe. When it comes to cooking, you want to make sure you're checking the temperature on your meats as you cook. Generally, you're going to want to put a thermometer into the thickest part of the meat to figure out if it's the right temperature to be safe for consumption. When it comes to cooking poultry, like turkey or chicken, you want to make sure that you're hitting 165 degrees Fahrenheit. For items like fish and shellfish, you want to make sure you're hitting 145 degrees Fahrenheit. And for items like red meat and pork, you want to make sure that you're hitting 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Same thing with your egg dishes. When you're eating eggs, you want to make sure that you're cooking your yolks all the way through. Unfortunately, runny eggs are not safe during cancer and its treatments. When it comes to leftovers or casseroles, you really want to make sure that you're reheating things to at least 165 degrees and then letting them cool to be ready to eat. When microwaving food, make sure all your food comes out very hot and stir often when reheating to avoid those cold spots. When it comes to food handling, you're going to make sure that you discard any eggs with cracked shells or discard any food in your fridge or on your counter that looks or smells strange. Please do not try to taste them first. As tempting as it is to taste your dairy to make sure it actually went sour, we don't recommend this and it puts you at risk for getting that bacteria. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, you can still eat raw fruits and vegetables during treatment. But the important thing is to make sure that you're washing your fruits and vegetables well. Make sure you really take your time to wash your fruits and vegetables under running water before you peel or cut any of them. This even includes things like bananas or oranges. Even though you technically aren't eating the skin of the banana or the orange, you still risk getting the bacteria that's on the skin into your food. So you really want to make sure you're rinsing it first before you go to eat your orange or your banana. Same thing with items like melons or pineapple. Your knife will be passing through the area in which there might be dirt or bacteria. So you really want to make sure you're taking your time to scrub your melons and pineapple well before you cut into them. For items like melons or potatoes that have a thick, rough skin, it's always a good idea to use a vegetable scrubber to make sure you're getting as much dirt as you can off of your food. When it comes to leafy greens, generally you want to try to rinse them one leaf at a time if it's feasible. Things like romaine are a good way to do this. You want to use running water and wash things even if the leafy greens say they've been pre-washed. The same thing goes for prepackaged salad, slaws, or other prepared produce. Make sure you're washing it well, even if it says it's been pre-washed. And make sure that you're washing the tops of your canned foods with soap and water before opening. This goes for things like soups, canned tomatoes, canned fruit, canned green beans. You really want to make sure you're cleaning the can first, because technically, when that can opener goes through there, it could be pushing dirt into the actual food. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, there are some things you want to make sure you avoid. The big thing is you do not want to eat any raw vegetable sprouts. Unfortunately, raw sprouts are often linked with bacteria like E. coli and salmonella because they're grown in a warm and humid condition. You also want to make sure that you discard anything that starts to get slimy, moldy, or otherwise questionable rather than risking it. Try to avoid buying any pre-cut produce in the grocery store. As much as we'd love to trust that everyone is really rinsing and cleaning their fruits and vegetables well, we don't know that someone did that. We wouldn't want you to get sick from something that's been pre-cut. When it comes to juice, we recommend that you choose pasteurized juice only when you're buying things from the store. We don't know how well someone was cleaning their fruits beforehand or how long that fruit juice was sitting out before it was put in the fridge. If you make it yourself at home, make sure that you're rinsing the peel of your citrus or whatever fruit you're choosing to make juice with really well, and you're cleaning things before you make your juice. And then you immediately refrigerate your juice once you're done making it. Another important part of food safety is avoiding cross-contamination. When you're cooking, make sure you're using a clean knife to cut different foods. For example, if you're doing fruits and vegetables, you want to make sure you're doing one knife for your fruits and vegetables and a separate knife for any raw proteins you may be touching to make sure you don't get any bacteria from the raw meat. Same thing with your cutting boards. Try to keep a cutting board specifically for raw meat to make sure no bacteria is touching your fresh fruits or produce. In your refrigerator, make sure you're storing raw meat away from your ready-to-eat food items, and make sure that those items that are raw meat are sealed when stored. We want to make sure that you're keeping these things away from your ready-to-eat food items, so just in case that raw meat leaked, you don't have to throw out other foods in your refrigerator. Make sure you're cleaning your counters and your cutting boards with hot soapy water. Or you could also use a solution of 1 part bleach to 10 parts water. If you are using the 1 part bleach to 10 parts water solution, it's really important that you rinse your cutting boards and your counters well after you use this, after it's dried out. When grilling or cooking meats, make sure you're always using a separate clean plate for your cooked meats. Same thing goes for tongs. A lot of times when we're cooking, people will use the same tongs on their raw meat and then touch their fully cooked meat with the same tongs they were using when it was raw. Make sure that you have separate tongs ready for when your meat is done cooking so you don't risk getting that bacteria that was on the raw meat into your cooked meal. Let's talk a little bit about groceries. One of the best things you can do when grocery shopping is make sure you're checking the sell-by and use-by dates. Do not buy products that are out of date, and don't buy products that you know you won't use before they're out of date. Do not buy any damaged, swollen, rusted, or deeply dented canned items. I know it's tempting to buy the dented ones because sometimes the grocery store will give you a discount, but technically when those things are dented, air or other bacteria can get into the canned item and you don't want to put yourself at risk. When you're buying boxed or bag items, make sure they're well sealed. If you notice you bought some pasta and the box is kind of cracked and maybe things are leaking, or maybe you bought some bagged rice and there's a little hole in it, it's probably for the best that you don't use that product. Try to choose unblemished fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables with blemishes are technically still edible, but they do rot a little faster, and you want to keep yourself safe from any mold or bacteria that may grow. If you can, try to avoid eating any deli meat unless it's been heated in the microwave. And do not buy things from self-serve or bulk buy containers. As much as it's sometimes cheaper to buy from bulk buy, anybody has access to that, which means someone could have put their hand in it directly or sneezed into that container. So you want to keep yourself safe. You also want to make sure you avoid free food samples. As tempting as these free food samples are, generally things aren't kept at food safe temperatures because they're sitting on a counter waiting for people to pick them up. You want to make sure you're keeping things hot or keeping things cold as much as you can. We talked about this a little bit before, but when you're buying eggs, always make sure you're checking that they're not cracked and don't buy unrefrigerated eggs. When choosing dairy products, make sure you're choosing pasteurized products only. The best way to check if a dairy product is pasteurized is to look at the back of the label under the ingredients. The first ingredient should be pasteurized milk. Generally, the big dairy items you're going to be careful of are soft cheeses. When you buy refrigerated and frozen items, make sure you're buying them last when you grocery shop. And avoid letting your groceries sit out in a hot car and put them away immediately when you get home. Let's talk a little bit about dining out. If you are going to dine out, try to choose early times when the restaurants won't be at their peak. That way your food will come to you right away and it won't be sitting underneath a hot light or something like that for very long. When you're eating at fast food restaurants, try to request that they prepare your food fresh. That way we know that your fries or your burgers or whatever you're getting has been in a safe temperature and hasn't been sitting under a light. Try to avoid using bulk condiment containers. Instead, ask for individual packets of condiments like ketchup and mayonnaise. We know you're a little more food safe. Avoid eating at buffets, salad bars, delicatessens, potlucks, or street vendors. As tasty as these foods can be, often these foods are left out at unsafe temperatures for unknown amounts of time, which could put you at risk for bacteria or infections. When eating out, try to only choose hot foods and make sure your food arrives hot. As much as we'd like to trust that everyone is following food safety recommendations and really cleaning their produce well, we have no way to know if they're doing that. So try to avoid eating any raw fruits or vegetables when you're eating out. If you plan to keep leftovers, box your food yourself and make sure you're heating your leftovers to 165 degrees at home to make sure you're staying food safe. Thank you for listening in. I hope this information will help you as you undergo cancer treatment. From now until December 6th, Massey will be hosting our weekly patient farm stand from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Wednesdays at the Adult Outpatient Pavilion. This farm stand for patients and their caregivers is a great way to try fresh seasonal produce to help in your health journey. The Ramble Walking for Wellness has also restarted for the fall season. Ramble will meet every first Saturday of the month at Monroe Park and every third Saturday of the month at Stony Point Fashion Park. The Ramble Walk gives the opportunity for patients, caregivers, and community members to go for a walk with VCU Health staff members for physical activity and to ask any health questions they have. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me via email at samantha.haswell@vcuhealth.org.